My goal is to be a badass 90-year-old. You don't get to be a badass 90-year-old if you're not a badass 30-year-old or a badass 40-year-old or a badass 50. Like, it takes work. Yeah, I think, when it comes to functional movements, we need to be able to bend. We need to be able to extend our spine. There's a lot of work that can be done. A lot of places, you'll maybe see your physical therapist for 5 or 10 minutes, and then they pass you off to a care extender. We just don't believe that that's the best thing. And when you're paying for physical therapy, you should be receiving it from a physical therapist.
Hello, everyone. Allie Virtue here. I am a functional medicine nutritionist and the owner of Parkside Nutrition. And welcome to the Pre-Diet Podcast. This podcast is geared towards helping those who are just getting started on their health journey. And hopefully I can provide some information, some resources, so you don't feel the need to start another random diet on Monday. I really want to pass on skills that are going to make your most recent kind of health campaign, health journey attempt really stick for the long term. And today we have a fantastic resource for you. It is Jon Moore, the owner of the PT Project, the Physical Therapy Project. He is a doctorate in physical therapy, and he is a wealth of knowledge. Some of the things that we talked about today were just so fascinating to me. So many moments come to mind, but he talks about what are some misconceptions when it comes to physical therapy, what are some myths that he is, addressing with his clients and patients, and what else did we talk about? What is an optimal routine? How often should you be reaching out or seeing your physical therapist? So lots of information if you are interested in staying healthy for the long term, or if you have some particularly physical or athletic goals coming up. We covered the gambit. So let's dig into the episode right now. Well, welcome, Jon, to the Pre-Diet Podcast. I am so excited to have you on because you are a very different perspective. I'm the nutrition side of things, but you are a physical therapist, doctorate of physical therapy, and the owner of the PT Project, or the Physical Therapy Project. But welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. I appreciate it.
Of course. So for people who don't know who you are, what else do we need to know about you so people get a good idea of who Jon is? He's a physical therapist, but what are your hobbies, your interests? What are you passionate about? Who is Jon?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I'm a husband, almost 25 years, father of two. I've got a 15-year-old, almost 16, and a 12-year-old. So those two keep us pretty busy. When they're not keeping us busy with their activities, I really enjoy being outdoors and doing all types of stuff active, whether it's coaching sports. I do triathlon. I've done the Oregon 70.3 a couple times, lots of sprint triathlons. I've run a few marathons, half marathons. So I try to, walk the walk. That I'm trying to teach my clients, to be active and healthy and invest in their fitness. So I try to do that as well. So, but yeah, get out, go for a hike outdoors. We're surrounded by nothing but beauty here in the Pacific Northwest. So there's lots of stuff to do.
You always been interested in sports, even since like playing sports as a kid, and it just kind of grew into a career?
Yeah, pretty much. I was always the kid that, from the time I could walk, I was carrying a bat or had a football helmet on, or, my parents have pictures of me like when I was like in diapers, but I'm still carrying a bat and got a glove on my hand and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's just been a lifelong passion. And, it was one of those things like, how do I, continue my love for sports into my career, and this has blended pretty well for that.
That's awesome. Did you always know you wanted to be a physical therapist? Where did that? Because there's obviously so many avenues to still be involved with sports, but how did PT kind of come to mind?
Yeah, so I first got the notion of being a PT. Actually, my dad implanted that kind of in me, like when I was 8. He had a friend who was a physical therapist that had done stuff with professional sports teams and all that kind of stuff. And he was like, "Hey, what do you know?" And so like that was kind of the first impression of physical therapy on me. And then going through high school, it was continued just like, I want to be involved with sports. What are the things that allow me to do that? I had a passion for healthcare. My parents were people who invested in others and helped kind of take care of others. So that was an important part of who we were. So yeah, that was kind of a deal. And so I went through high school, and, those like aptitude tests of like, what skills, what are your strengths? What would you be good at? Mine always came up as either like physical therapist or garbage man. And so,
Fun.
so physical therapist sounded better than, no disrespect to
Hmm.
people who, pick up the
Yeah.
trash. We need those folks, but that was just not my passion. So,
Hmm.
physical therapy was kind of the deal, that or athletic training. And
Hmm.
so I went off to college kind of with those two career paths in mind. And while I was at Corbin, I started volunteering in the athletic training center, started volunteering in PT clinics, and it was really just became evident that PT was the route for me, with the goal of having a family and all of that kind of stuff. And now here I am kind of getting a chance to do both.
Amazing. I don't think a lot of people think about that as much of like maybe the job that we like, but also how does that match like our personal goals or family goals? Like, can we be around? And you obviously own your own business, so you can cater it to what you need it to be.
For sure.
Awesome. What was the hardest or part of the track as far as like on the way to becoming a PT?
Oh, I just think, just the day in and day out, like just the rigors of like,
Hmm.
man, is this worth it? Like all the time, the studying and the money and all of that kind of stuff. Back then, like when I got into physical therapy, there was only one school here in the state of Oregon.
Wow.
Now we've got five. So it was much harder to get into PT school, and it is still a challenge, but it was really hard to get into schools. I was fortunate to get accepted to three out of the four that I applied to. But it wasn't that I think that was probably the hardest process is just getting accepted to PT school and then just getting through the 3 years of day in and day out tests and studying and all of it. So,
Tough track for sure. And you've been doing this career how long now?
oh gosh, since 2007. So whatever that is, almost 19
Okay.
years.
Wow.
Yeah,
You need to update your website. I think it said 14 years. And I
I,
was like, I have a
it's
feeling this is
yeah,
on the older side.
yeah,
Yeah.
19 years now.
Wow.
In November, I'm an old guy.
You know a thing or two. Yeah.
Wha- I've forgotten more than I know, I think, but.
What are some of the misconceptions that people might have when it comes to PT? Because I feel like a lot of people think it doesn't work when I think a lot of people might not put in the work. But what are some of I don't want to say that as a generalization necessarily, but what are some of the misconceptions that you think a lot of people have about physical therapy?
Yeah, I think there's a few. I think one of them is physical therapy is only for when you're hurt.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of work that can be done on the healthy side of things or the pre-injury side of things to keep you from becoming injured. But working with a physical therapist to help figure out what those things are that lead to those injuries can be a big important thing. So being on like the prehab side of things versus rehab, that's one misconception. Um, Another misconception, which I'm working to try to change, is that PT is only about very generic exercises with rubber bands and, uh, you know, um, finding stuff that you can do essentially online from Google or like any of the YouTube, like, you know, Brad and Bob type stuff. So that's, I think, unfortunately, my profession has done a really bad job of demonstrating its value to people. And that's where a lot of those misconceptions are. So we've allowed insurance companies and lots of different things to dictate quality of care. And unfortunately, that's led to the notion that physical therapy doesn't work. If people like get the care that they deserve, then almost always they're going to start to see improvement. Whether they're injured, they've got something going on, people will start to see our bodies adapt pretty quickly if you're doing and putting the right stuff into it. Just like with food, right? Your body is going to feel amazing, much better if you start feeding it the right stuff.
Absolutely. Is that something that keeps you interested as well as like you find other exercises to, match someone's either like their specific sport as like different sports come into popularity and things like that? What keeps you interested after 19 plus years doing this?
I think for me, it's the stories. It's the stories of the
Mm.
people that are coming to us and the reason why they do their activities. That's for me, like it's not about, oh, like I've discovered some new great exercise. Like the human body is pretty simple, and the stuff that works for human bodies doesn't change that much. But it's the stories of the individuals that are coming to us, whether they're coming to us in a really broken state, and over the course of weeks, we help them get back to doing the activities that they love to do. Like that's what, for me, is the thing that fills the bucket for me.
That's awesome. Absolutely. I mean, people make it interesting, right? The stuff that we do. I had that kind of epiphany not that long ago, and it probably happens every now and then of like, am I going to be talking about like fiber content of things in 30 years or however long my career lasts? I was like, oh, this is like going to be the same. And I was like, oh my God, do I want to do this? But everybody's different and you find different analogies that work for different people and just kind of saying the same story or similar story. I mean, science does change and we learn new things, but trying to still, find that way to connect with that person to get them, yeah, to the next chapter of their story that they want to write for themselves.
Totally. For me, it always starts like we do free like consultation discovery calls before somebody ever comes in to see us, and I always ask like during that visit, like why why is whatever activity you can't do right now, why is it important to you? And why is that important to you? And it starts to become like, okay, that's the real goal. Like, we need you to be able to get back to running because it's your stress relief, it's your sense of community, it provides like all these things that now you're being robbed of because your knee hurts. So if we can always get back to that why, then it makes it much more meaningful to them. It makes it a whole lot more meaningful to me to know, like, okay, I've got to get this better for this person, or at least do everything I can to help this person so that they reach and are filling their bucket again.
Absolutely. And I'm guessing, I mean, that's probably one of the most challenging pieces of my job is like, quote, helping someone find motivation or doing the things. Besides finding their why. I mean, I think that's excellent, like almost like step zero, right?
Yeah.
If we don't know why we're doing stuff, it's really hard to be motivated to. Is there anything else that helps, that ways that you help clients like stay motivated or get the things done when it's challenging or potentially painful for them to do those exercises?
Yeah, I think, just encouraging people of like, you know what, I know this is something that's hard for you, it's foreign, but for me, I've seen this countless times over and over and over and over the last 19 years, right? So trust me, I know it's going to be hard for you. Just trust me, trust the process. And I think once people like understand that you care as much about them getting better as they care about them getting better, the buy-in and the sense of trust like is exponentially increased. So
A great point. Yeah, because people invest in people.
yeah,
That's why I feel like the one-on-one practitioner ratio works better than like you could find a lot of this stuff on Google, but Google's not going to care about you
totally.
or your results.
Absolutely.
What kind of clients or patients do you see most of the time? I feel like from the outside, people might think you only work with athletes, but that's not the case, is it?
No, not at all. And I think that's probably like part of it is like we've gone so heavy with like helping support like the Salem Capitals, the Marion Berries baseball, Corbin University athletics, all those types of things. But in the fact of the matter is, we treat everybody. Our clients are everybody. I say it all the time. If you have a body, we believe you're an athlete. So we're going to treat you like you're an athlete. Your sport may look different to from the person that we worked with last or is coming in after you, but life is a sport, whether we like it or not. We're all running a race. And so our races events look different, but we're going to treat you like you're the athlete that you are, whether you believe you are or not. So, I mean, our youngest client, I think that we've had in the clinic is 7 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old. Our oldest is 94. So,
Okay, I was going to ask the oldest.
yeah, so our oldest is
94. Heck
94.
yeah.
And you know what? I still have her do functional movements You know, she's still doing
Ooh.
deadlift mechanics with a you know, with a PVC pipe. We're still
Yeah.
working on squat stuff. I still have her pushing a sled. You know, so you
Awesome.
know, and the first day she came into me, she was using a walker. In fact,
Wow.
to get from our parking lot to the treatment room, it took 5 stops using the walker to get, you know,
Wow.
the 50 feet from the parking lot in the
And
door.
that's not far. You
No,
guys are pretty close. It's not a long hallway or anything
it's
like
not.
that.
It's
Wow.
not. So, so that's, you know, again, like just going back, like her sport looks different right now. Her sport, like she wanted to get back to walking, and doing
Yeah.
it successfully without the walker and cutting down the risk of her falls. Like that only happens by
Mhm.
being strong enough to be resilient to the world around her, and movement is movement. So
Absolutely. That's so awesome to hear of like it kind of reminds me, I mean, I say all the time, like nobody graduates past the basics. Like you still have to like drink water, eat generally well, sleep, all of those things. What comes to mind? What's that version for you with the physical therapy side? Is it like squat, deadlift? Are there truly like pretty universal movements that fit most goals or just help people be strong?
yeah, I think, you know, when it comes to functional movements, we need to be able to bend. We need to be able to extend our spines. We need to be able to squat, move through our hips and our knees. We need to be able to press overhead. We need to be able to do some of those things because they're functional. We need to be able to pull, right? So those are kind of the universal like movement patterns, and we can break it down and be get even more scientific about it. But the fact of the matter is, we need to be able to bring food to our face. We need to be able to push stuff away from us. We need to be able to get up off the
Yeah.
floor, or stand up from a chair and sit down to a chair. You know, all of those types of things. So those are the fundamentals, but we need to be able to have the joints and the muscle capacity to be able to move our those joints through space.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. I feel like that's not really talked about as much. It's talked about a lot in the CrossFit world, right? Because it's like all quote functional
Yeah.
movements. I think there's some fun human tricks thrown in there. I don't know if I need to do handstand push-ups. I think there's other ways to press,
Yeah.
but yeah, that would be a really interesting like re-education point in like I don't know PE school, PE classes like for kids growing up because I don't feel like there's like almost like exercises put as into like childhood is like, oh, we need to get the energy out of the kids versus like, I don't think I ever really learned how to work out until joining CrossFit and like paying a little bit more attention to like what makes up a workout because it was always either made for me in college softball or something along those lines. But is that something you try to talk to your clients about? Like this is how to exercise type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, again, it goes back to what their goals are. You know, I'm not going to
Mm.
try to pretend that everybody needs to be a barbell athlete and push and deadlift and squat if that doesn't isn't the thing that fills their bucket. You know, if the thing that fills
Yeah.
their bucket is going for a hike and going for a walk with friends, then I'm not gonna
Mhm.
like pretend that their goal is less important because that's what my goal for them is. Like it always comes back to their goal first. So I'm going to try to build a program around what their goals are for them to support what their goals are so that they can continue to do the stuff. If that, it doesn't mean that their goal has to stay the same goal from now until they get called home. It just means that they have the liberty to change and like pursue new passions when they're ready for it. And, you know, I'm just the avenue or the kind of the guide to help them get to that new spot.
Absolutely. Is there like if someone says like their goal is like longevity of just, being able to pick up grandkids, maybe do like the local 5K or sprint triathlon, just like generally healthy human can kind of pick up something and just like go play pickleball or whatever. Is there elements to quote like an optimal workout routine for longevity? Is there like, because everybody I see a lot of arguments between like strength training and yoga and Pilates and like cardio and yeah, is there, like, a right way or more optimal for that generally recreational, lifelong athlete?
Yeah, I think, you know, for those folks who are just like fitness, I just want to have an overall fitness goal. Yeah, I mean, think you need to be working out 2 to 3 times a day with strength, or not a day, two to three times a week. That includes all of those things. In it, strength training, a little bit of cardio, vascular stuff. You need to be eating healthy. You need to be getting sleep. You need to be getting, water intake, and then, taking care of your mental health through, whatever form that you desire, whether that's, through your faith, through meditation, like something to help kind of improve your mental fortitude also is important. So I think those things are really the things that we try to help people like kind of hunker in on, as far as like this. If you do these things, you don't have to do every single one perfect all the time, but if you're generally consistent with those 5 elements, you're going to set yourself up to have a pretty successful long race.
So you said mental health, some cardiovascular, some strength training. Is there how much strength training specifically? Is that like 2 to 3 is like a good base for people? 4 is fine. Is there like a top end to that recommendation?
I think probably like 2 to 3 times a week is great. If you wanted
Mhm.
to get into 4 or 5 times a week, that's totally fine. I think you do need to like interject some like mobility and recovery days into that, and then a rest day. I think people so many times like think more is better. If 2 times a week is good, then 7 days a week has to be the best. And
Obviously.
obviously, and what that leads to is just repetitive stress injuries. It leads to breakdown, as we
Mhm.
get older. I was just looking at studies last night on tendon health, and our tendons don't hold up and repair themselves the same way, you know, uh, in our 30s and 40s and 50s. Like you can see like cellular changes in our tendons happen across each generation. And so, we need to take that into account. So somebody in their 70s, that perfect days or weeks like looks a whole lot different than somebody in their 20s does.
Speaking of injuries, what's it sounds silly question, but like what came to mind was like, what's too many injuries? Because I think there's a spectrum to it of like people will say like, oh, you like if I have something tweaked or whatever, people are like, oh, well, that that's sport, you're working out too much. But also I feel like well, I'm also an active person, so like overuse potentially is going to happen, but absolutely implementing rest days. But what's a sign that someone is either not working out properly, chronically injured? Like is there a balance there of like what's quote normal of just hazards of life versus I might not be strong enough or I might not be fit enough or maybe my balance is not great if I keep falling type of thing? How do you help people interpret what might be normal and what might not be normal?
Yeah. So in my opinion, injuries are always check engine lights. They're
Mm,
always a sign that there's something going on deeper in a movement
mhm,
pattern, whether that's because they lack strength or they lack motion somewhere. So injuries are just inevitably uh, uh, a symptom of faulty movement patterns. And so when you start to, faulty movement leads in a circle to bad habits, and those bad habits eventually lead to injury and pain, and that you just more pain, faulty movement patterns just continue to cycle, and it breaks up, and you'll start to see like, well, maybe like this morning I just woke up with a stiff neck, uh, you know, and it goes away. Then that continues to happen over and over and over. Then we start moving differently, and now suddenly our shoulder is messed up, or like, type of thing. It wasn't that our shoulder had anything to problem with it. That if we had listened to our body like we should have when our neck started bothering us, we could have been a little bit more proactive about taking care of the stuff before it became a problem. So for me, it always goes back to like what should a joint move like, And do I have the strength to support that joint through the activity that I'm doing? If I'm moving good and I have the strength to withstand the rigors of the activity, I'm never going to break down. You know, so pain, like like soreness from muscle, like muscle soreness, that's a different thing. But like true pain that like stops you from doing an activity, like that's not normal.
Okay, I was good. You're answering all my questions, John, before
Perfect.
I get the chance to ask it. It's great. But that was my next question of like soreness versus pain, because someone who's just starting, I think that often gets confused. So can you say that again, or define like soreness versus pain so people know like, okay, this is soreness. I'm okay. I can still move. Maybe I move at lighter weights today or lower intensity versus like, is this actually going to hurt me? Like if I keep pushing through this?
So, kind of my general rule of thumb when I'm talking with people is there's two types of pain. There's good pain and there's bad pain. Good pain, that's muscle soreness that after you've done a new activity or something for the first time, like there's probably a whole bunch of people right now with some sore muscles after being out in their yards gardening for the first time, type of stuff.
Hmm.
Those things the soreness should not stop us from doing anything the remainder of the day. So it shouldn't completely like shut us down. It should go away within 24 to 48 hours. And, it shouldn't be like sharp stabbing pain. If it's like a dull ache that's just kind of there, we feel it when we move, but it doesn't stop us from doing the rest of our daily activities. That's an okay spot. That's the we push forward spot, or at least don't change anything, continue to do the same level of activity. And then once that soreness goes away and we can do that activity without the soreness, we're ready to increase what our activity level. If we, on the flip side, bad pain is like sharp stabbing pain, pain that like instantly stops us in our tracks or keeps us from doing our daily activities, or it's lasting longer than the 48 hours, then we need to reevaluate what we're doing. We're either pushing too hard or something's not moving correctly, and we need to take a step back and do a little bit more investigation as to why that's happening.
Be your first like order of operations? I mean, obviously eliciting the help of a PT is helpful. What would you recommend like first order of people to do? Like if this is starting to happen, like okay, I'm way more sore than what I thought, lasting more than the 48 hours, starting to get those repeated like, stiff necks or stiff joints in the morning type of thing. Is that like, oh, I need to implement a rest day, I need to maybe stretch or add in more yoga? What's like kind of the first things that are pretty readily available for people, and then kind of how has it progressed from there to obviously reaching out for a professional's help?
Yeah. So first thing to do is just do it like an inventory check of like, did I change? What did I change? What were the variables that changed for me? So did I start a new workout? If I started a new workout, is this consistent? Is that pain again lasting longer than 48 hours? If I go back and do the same workout, was it easier or harder for me? Those types of things. So just doing kind of a check that way first is really important. Also, what was my sleep like the night before? What was my nutrition before I worked out or did the activity? Did I get enough water? All of those types of things are going to have an influence on how your body feels afterwards. So those things, if they're all completely the same as you normally have done and you've had a workout in the past and you've done all the same stuff, then there's probably an indicator that there's something not moving correctly. Most people have a hard time figuring out exactly what that thing is for themselves. So that's where I would say, yeah, get in, come in, see a physical therapist, get in and just have them do a quick screening for you and see if there's anything going on. A lot of times, pain where we feel it is not the true source of where it's actually coming from. So that's just again, it's the check engine light saying there's something going on in the engine that's needs to be tuned up a little bit.
Makes
Yeah,
a lot of sense.
yeah,
that, that makes a lot of sense, because quite often it can be like my knee hurts, it could be above or below the joint, right? it's
absolutely.
it's referred from somewhere else.
Yep, yep. So um, essentially, like we always kind of go back to this like stable mobile concept where our body is
Mm.
really like pretty simple in its design. If you stop and think of it, we're mobile joints connected to stable joints. And you've heard me talk about this before. A mobile joint is a joint that's intended to go lots of different directions really, really well. Stable joints are intended to go one direction only. So if you think about how our body is laid out, we're just mobile joints connected to stable joints. So like our ankles are mobile. The next joint up is our knee. That one's stable because it's essentially a hinge. The next one up is our hip, which is mobile. It goes lots of different directions. Then our pelvis and our low back should be stable. Our upper back mobile. That allows our shoulder blades to be stable, shoulder mobile, elbow stable, wrist mobile, so on and so forth. So the problem becomes if one of the mobile joints starts to get stiff or it starts, it tightens up, or one of those stable joints starts moving too much, then we're going to run into issues, and that's where the pain is going to start. Okay, so for your knee example, it's not that your knee is hurting necessarily, or that's the source of the pain. Like it's probably because the knee is instead of doing, a hinge, it's twisting.
Yeah, too
So
much.
why is that happening? It's because it's trapped between two very mobile joints in the hip and the ankle, and if those aren't stable or they're moving too much, then you've got problems. So that's where the strength problem
So
comes in.
cool.
So, like a lot of times, we never, like for people that come in with knee pain, typically we're going to attack either their foot and ankle or their hip and start there. And it's going to clear up the problem most of the time. That's usually just kind of the first level. If you take it a step deeper, there's usually stuff going on even higher up in their spine that aren't moving as well. So that's where we kind of start to go after those root causes of like, okay, if we're going to fix your knee pain, we got to take care of your spine and your hips, type of thing.
Wow. Do you blow a lot of people's minds when they come in like, "Oh, this small part of my body hurts. It's right here." And you're like doing a full assessment and finding all these other things that it's like, actually, it's because of these things.
Yeah,
Do you have a lot of those common myths that you kind of bust for people of like, actually, this is the problem and you probably thought it was this?
totally, totally. And we get a lot of people because of kind of the nature of our like business setup that have gone to physical therapy other places or have tried lots of
Mhm.
other things and haven't had the success that they were hoping for. And kind of
Mhm.
as a last ditch, they'll go like, "Oh, like so Allie told me that I should come see you," type of thing. And it's like, okay, we can go through that stuff and explain that and they start to go, here's the reason why you haven't had success in these other places that you've gone to or the other things that you've tried, whether it's the Google exercises or you've gone to another, chiropractor, PT, sports medicine professional, and it didn't work out for you. Here's why, because they targeted the wrong thing with their treatments. They didn't get to the root cause. And once we start doing that, people are like, I explain exactly what I just did. Like, here's the problem. It's not that you've got all this other stuff going on. It's this. And they're like, oh, that makes a whole lot more sense.
Really helpful. This wasn't one of my planned questions, but can you go into where a PT comes in context of like athletic trainer, your personal trainer? Like when do those scopes of practice kind of potentially cross over? But then also, where's the line of like, oh, I need a physical therapist help versus the athletic trainer versus the personal trainer?
Yeah. So, in the hierarchy of skills, your personal trainer is going to be at the bottom. Your athletic
Hmm.
trainer is going to be the next one on the rung, and then your PT is going to be sitting over the top of that.
Hmm.
So, essentially, all physical therapy can be considered fitness or personal training. Not all personal training or athletic training can be considered physical therapy. So, even like that, this is one of my like big pet peeves is when I go to a gym and they're like, "Oh, we offer PT." No, you don't. You offer personal training. That is not physical therapy. And in Oregon and a lot of states across the country, PT, those letters connected to each other are reserved only for physical therapists, and it's against the law for any person who's not a physical therapist to state that they offer PT. So
I didn't know that.
yeah, so that's the thing. Like anytime you're
Hmm.
coming to physical therapy, like you can
Hmm.
consider that personal training or fitness, type of thing. Just because somebody got a degree off the internet in the course of a weekend doesn't make them physical
Hmm.
therapists. And so, a PT, especially somebody with a doctorate with lots of experience, those folks went to school for a very, very long time to understand how your body moves and to be the expert of the musculoskeletal system.
You guys are diagnosing issues. That's pretty clear. Like, because even a athletic trainer, I remember in college, they're like, "Well, this is kind of like." They would never obviously like diagnose played softball, right?
Yep.
So like chronic, any right side of your body, whatever side you throw with is just usually a little worn down. And so they're like, well, I'm not really injured enough to like warrant going to the physical therapist, but like do these exercises. But they would obviously like never diagnose. Is that like another line kind of in the sand of like you guys are diagnosing issues?
Yeah, we're diagnosing things from like a movement standpoint. Like even our scope of
Hmm.
practice doesn't allow us to officially like diagnose things, but we can say, hey, your symptoms, your signs and your symptoms are consistent with this. We're not
Gotcha.
coming out with like a formal like you have a rotator cuff tear. We can say
Hmm.
like all of your signs point to this. So it's just again, it's the nuances of our scope of practice and all of those types of things.
Hmm.
But yeah,
That makes sense.
it like we could go off on this as a tangent,
Oh, for sure, for
for
sure.
sure. Where personal trainers are
Hmm.
like, "Oh, you've got this going on." You're like, "How? No, no,
How would you know?
yeah, you don't,
How do you know?
and the the great thing is like there are amazing personal trainers around the area that
Hmm.
do a great job of understanding where their limitations are and then saying,
Hmm.
"Hey, this is outside of my knowledge base. Go see John
Yeah.
and Jared over at the Physical Therapy Project." Or, just like me, if something looks like it's outside of my scope of practice, I'm going to say, "Hey, like
Mm.
this really needs additional imaging. I recommend you go see an orthopedic surgeon." Type of thing. Let's get some extra help on this and take a look at it.
Absolutely. And I feel like that gives me a lot of confidence when professionals or providers say that, because then they know like this isn't my area of strength or we need other information. And hopefully that is translated to most people of like, oh, this is a good thing when someone isn't necessarily the jack of all
Yeah,
trades. It's good to have to stay in your zone of genius.
for sure.
Um, What else was I gonna say? Oh, I think again, John, you answered it. But when is the best time to reach out to a PT? Is there kind of like we go to see our PCP, like once a year or every 2 years to get some blood work in and check in if there's any check engine lights on? Is there an optimal time that you guys would love to see people? Is it kind of like on the very early stages of this is starting to feel a little funky? I don't want it to become a thing, or like what's the best way to utilize your services?
Yeah, so I would say at the very minimum, like if you've had a pain or discomfort that's lasted longer than 2 weeks, that it's an that if it's lasted longer than 2 weeks and it's been consistently like there, go get checked out, like come in.
Hmm.
Because the chances that it's going to go away on its own after 2 weeks are pretty minimal. The sooner you can come in to see us, the sooner we can get our hands on it and start to like address the thing before it leads to more movement dysfunction and creates even more problems. The people that I wish would always come in sooner are the ones that have, oh, I've been dealing with this for the last 3 years. Like, or it's been going on for 6 months. It's like, why are you waiting this long? to get this taken care of. I mean, guys are the worst at that. They'll damn near let an appendage fall off their body or be dangling from their body before they ask for help, and it's usually their wives or significant others that are like, "I'm tired of you complaining about this. I made the appointment for you. Go do it." But the sooner we can get people in, the quicker we can get it taken care of. Um, we have, programs with us where we have people that come in on a monthly basis or like two times a month, and they just say like, "I love the way that I feel. I never want it to get back to the way it was before. So, can I just come in for a monthly tune-up?" And essentially, what we do is we take them through the movement stuff. Kind of, we can start addressing things before it becomes a problem. And they just come in like, just like you would go in to get your oil changed in your car. It's just a regular maintenance thing. And so those people are always the ones that are feeling awesome, because they're quick to jump on something. They're like, "Oh, my neck's been bothering me. Cool, let's take a look at it. Oh, that's your upper back that's not moving, and not because a third of your motion in your neck comes from your upper back. We need to work and get here's 5 exercises, things that you can do on your own over the next month to work on your upper back mobility." Then they come back and they're like, "Oh, how's your neck doing?" "Oh, it's fantastic. It cleared right up after you gave me those things." So that's our ideal way of seeing people is just before they're ever injured, before something turns into this chronic thing, come see us.
Awesome. Are there any, to use the younger folks' words, like green flags versus red flags of like when you start working with a client? Mostly I want to see that people are like open-minded and not necessarily telling me exactly what they want from me of like I just need macros. I just need this type of thing. And I'm like, "Okay, there's usually other elements that make that, detail or measurement or the specifics easier that we'll talk about." But are there anything that comes to mind for PT? Is it just being open-minded? People are coachable? What kind of comes to mind when I say green flags versus red flags?
Well, when we talk about red flags for physical therapy, it's like, what are the things that like definitely don't belong in our office? So like that's where
Mm,
when we talk about like red flags for PT standpoint, those are the things that are like,
mhm,
"This is clearly not mine. Go see somebody else," type of thing. As far as like the green or red flags type of thing for clients, for us, um, the red flag for sure is the person who comes in and acts like they don't want to be there, or they, I'm here only because my spouse made me.
mm,
The person has to
yep.
want it for themselves. It'd be like, me signing up for your services,
Mhm.
and you're like, "What are your goals? Or what do you want out of this?" And you're like, "I don't know. I'm just here because my wife made me." Like she thought it was a good idea.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
instantly like, that's not going to work out well.
Not gonna
Like
work.
we're not a good fit for you. And part of that is we're trying to figure those people out on the phone before they ever come in, so
Mm-hmm.
that we can, we want good people for us. We want to be a good fit, people, our clients to be good fits for us, just as much as we want to be good fits for our clients. So that's a red flag. Um, the other red flag is just, I think that's really the only red flag. If people are coachable and willing
Mm-hmm.
to put in the work and want it for themselves, then like those are the green flag people. Those are the ones that we want to help. And it just gets back to their why. Like why are you reaching out? Why is this important? If it's not important to them, like it can't be more important to me than it is to them.
Yeah. That's a great point. Absolutely. For anyone starting out, like kind of day one of their health journey, maybe they've never been an athlete before, they don't identify as an athlete, they're trying to just generally be healthier. What is some kind of two-part question, but what is some advice in general that you have for them? And also, are there any other habits that might make the physical thing easier that you found? Like people do this, they're also more successful with, staying with their exercises and things like that. What kind of comes to mind for those people that are just getting started and you want them to be really successful and make this kind of call it a health campaign,
Yeah.
really stick this time around.
I think the my first advice for those folks is start out small. Do something that's easy to do for you. It doesn't have to be like I'm going to run a half marathon, when I'm just getting off the couch. Like start off with something that's manageable, going for a 3 minute walk, you know, like that can be as simple as that. Start off with something that you can do that leaves you excited to do it again. If you go for, you know, let's just take that person who's never done anything, they want to run a 5K. Don't try to run the 5K the first day. You like go for run 1 minute, run 30 seconds, finish that 30 seconds and say, that was easy. I could have kept going. Awesome. Tomorrow you're going to go for a minute then. And pretty soon over time, you're going to be at your 5K distance. But if you like sabotage, I think a lot of times people sabotage themselves because they go full send right out of the gate and it's not a habit or something that they can sustain, right? And so they like finish their run, you know, got off the couch. I went for a 2 mile run today and they're hurt. They sucked wind the whole time. It felt awful. All of the stuff that doesn't leave them excited to do it again. And pretty soon, like finishing an activity defeated doesn't set you up for success to want to do it again tomorrow. And so like that would be my biggest piece of advice for somebody is like start off slow, you know, going back to a running. Like the only definition of running in the dictionary is having 2 feet off the ground at the act of, being a runner is the act
Yeah.
of having 2 feet off the ground at the same time in the movement. There's no
Yeah.
qualification of how fast you have to run, how far you have to go, any of that stuff. Those are all self-imposed things, but the true act is just doing it. So start off with something that you can be successful with.
That's fantastic. It reminds me of like when we coach kids or like I have 3 horses. And so like when you train a horse, if you make it like a horrible process, they will never work hard for you.
Mhm.
And same thing for kids, right? If you make that's an analogy I use all the time of like this nutrition stuff is just practice. Like if you miss a ball in practice, like what happens? And I actually recently asked a middle school class this and they're like, oh, you get benched. And I was like, no, you don't. Like you don't get benched in practice for missing something. Like you just get another shot.
Yeah,
But that's such a great way to look at it if you're not excited to do it the next day. Cause I think so many people start out with like, I don't know, like a really hard boot camp classes. And those can be great if you really like to do that long term. But like as a first starting point, that's really
for
tough.
sure.
Unless you probably have like people you go with or a community or the classes fit your time or whatever. But that's a great kind of reality check of like, am I excited to do it tomorrow? Do I have any regrets about this? No. Okay. I felt better afterwards, that type of thing. But that's a great way to think about it. What keeps you motivated? Because you do half Ironmans. Like that is a big undertaking. That's a lot of time too with an endurance sport, right? I mean, those are longer sessions to get ready for, the big race. But what keeps you motivated to keep working on your fitness and health?
Yeah, I mean, part of it goes back to like what I started off with, my family.
Mm,
I want to be around for as long as I possibly can. For my
mhm.
family to see like generations. So that's a big part of it for me is just I'm doing my best to set an example of hard work and fitness and all of these types of things for my kids. So my goal is to be my you know my goal is to be a badass 90-year-old. Like I want but so you don't get to be a badass 90-year-old if you're not a badass 30-year-old or a badass 40-year-old or a badass 50. Like it takes work, and so like you just don't arrive at that goal overnight. And so like my goal is to be a badass 90-year-old, so I need to be the best version of myself now. And so that's part of the motivation for me. Part of it is like I just like I'm always deep down like I'm competing, and so like I want to be the best at everything. My it kind of drives my wife nuts. Like if we're playing a board game, like I'm playing to win.
Yeah.
I like that's the enjoyment for me. So when I go out like and I do a half marathon,
Hmm.
like I finish and I'm excited to like I'm glad that I did it, but I'm like, did I beat my did I beat my goal? Well, shoot, I didn't.
Hmm.
I guess I got to sign up for the next one. Like I'm like constantly striving to improve myself. And so like that's part of the motivation for me too is just like how do I better myself, keep myself going? How do I be an example for
Hmm.
my clients? How do I be an example for my family?
Yeah.
And you know, I think the thing, whether it's anything in life, you know, the biggest way to not get people to know, like, know, or trust you is to be a hypocrite. And so, like, if you're the best nutritionist on earth, but you're 400 pounds, like, I,
I'm eating like endless amounts of bonbons. You know
I'm
what's
not,
watching.
I'm instantly going to be like, I don't know if I can trust what you're saying because you're not living it out.
Mhm.
Same thing
Yeah.
with you know, for me, physical therapist, if
Hmm.
I people are coming to me for their fitness and help them get back to doing things,
Hmm.
me being an athlete and taking my stuff seriously allows them to know that I understand what they're going through. And it's instantly relatable. And so like that's part of it too for me is just like if I'm going to be successful in my career, I need to also do the things that I'm talking about.
Absolutely, you got to walk the walk, not just talk the
Yep.
talk. I think that's pretty big, especially in a world and era of social media where a lot of it is just potentially smoke and mirrors, or we see the highlights and not the low lights. And that's been feedback for me as far as like social media of like when I share my little pity parties in my car of when I don't want to go to the gym, and they're like, "You don't want to go to the gym?" I was like, "No, not a machine. Like there's days that I don't want to get out of bed and don't want to do it, but I'm telling other people to do it, so I should absolutely be showing up when just even if I don't want to or feel like it."
Yeah, that's the conversation that I have with my kids all like my especially my 12-year-old. He's like, "I don't want to go to school." Like, I know. Guess what? I
Yeah.
don't want to go to work today either. But the fact of
Hmm.
the reality is I still have to, you know, and like we just have to do things that we're like not comfortable doing, you know, and so that's just the fact of life. And so, you know, whether it's I don't want to do my workout today, I don't want to do whatever, like we still got to do it. If it's important to us, we still got to do it. And so, you know, the hardest lift, I always like joke, make the joke, the hardest lift that you're ever going to do it happens long before you get to the gym. It's called lifting yourself out of bed or lifting yourself off the couch to
Yeah.
go to the gym to do it
Yes.
first. That's the hardest thing. Once you get there, it's not
Hmm.
bad, but like you gotta
Hmm.
like just get yourself off the couch and get there.
Absolutely. At the workout this morning, somebody we did in CrossFit like a Jackie. It was a repeatable workout, right? And one of the coaches was looking up a time, and he's like, "You got to beat your old time of like 10 minutes and 50 seconds." And I was like, "I when did I even do that? I don't remember doing that." And I was like, he was like, "Oh, it was 10 years ago, 2016." And I was like, "Oh, okay. I don't know where I don't think I'm as fit as I was back then because I know I was spent longer in the gym. I'm way fitter than I was back then." And that was like such a good message of like, just show up.
Yep.
Like, I don't think I've been trying terribly hard to be like great at exercising for probably at least 4 years, but I just kept showing up. And so, kind of half assed workouts for the last 4 years, I think, has still made me fitter. And I think that's what keeps me going back of like, you don't have to give 110% effort. You just can't quit because I see people quit for like months and years at a time, and then they have to start over. And I see how hard it is to get that motivation and energy to like step back in the gym again, let alone, like you said, the first lift. It's just hard to get there. So if we can just not quit and like keep using resources like yourself to keep us moving, like that gets you so far than trying to always have the perfect workout or have all the motivation in the world to do it.
For sure. For sure. I say it all the time. Like, just give 100% of what you can give today. Like, give a hundred
Hmm.
percent of the 100% that you've got today. 100%
Yeah.
today may look different than 100% tomorrow, but just give the
Hmm.
100% today. And if you can confidently like get into bed at the end of the day and say I gave 100% of what I had to give today, like things are going to turn out pretty well for you.
Absolutely. Lastly, John, I'd love to know how you balance fitness, family, and business. I feel like that is a trio that is hard to manage, but you keep doing it, you keep showing up for your community, like very, very successful in so many ways. But what keeps you kind of balanced or keeps the harmony amongst all those things that is, potentially pulling for your attention?
I think it starts out with just knowing what my priorities are first and
Mhm.
having like that be the thing that guides me. So for me, like my priorities are my faith, my family, and work comes like really like last. It's the thing that just allows me to do some of these other things. But when
Mhm.
it, for us, it's just faith first, family second, fun, and just like that, those are the things. And so, um, having it so that, work doesn't take away from family time. I think that's a big part of it is just knowing what your priorities are and, you know, making sure that you're juggling those things well. Those are those are the things that you can't afford to drop when you're juggling work, all these other types of things. Like if I drop that ball, it's going to bounce back at some point. Like I can pick that up and start back up with it again and it'll like be there. I can't afford to drop my family time. I can't afford to like mess up, all these things that I feel are the most important for me. If I drop those things, those relationships are going to get broken, irrevocably, scuffed or damaged somehow. So I can't afford to mess those ones up. And so that's for me, like, I talk about being a badass 90-year-old. Well, that talks like part of that is like integrity is important to me. Leaving a legacy is really important to me. So again, those are the big hierarchy goals for me for my life. So like I'm not gonna get and achieve those things if I say, you know what, work is the most important thing to me. I can't be at your games, kids. Sorry, you know, all of those types of things. If I treat my
Yeah.
wife terribly, like that doesn't lead to good things and getting myself to those goals later in life. So that's really how I do it, or at least how I view it. I'm not going to pretend like I'm perfect at it, and definitely there are going to be seasons in life where like my family knows that like I need to put a little bit more time and attention into this area for now. Um, and so yeah, that's really how I do it. I try to like maximize my day as much as possible and be very efficient with it and not waste the time that I've been given. But yeah, that's my secret, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think because it really starts, I think, so much sooner than a lot of people think of like, I need to have, the perfect scenario in all aspects of like, well, I just need a better business plan if I hire this person or this or that. It's always something that like we can't quite reach versus like what's in control of what's in our hands right now. It's like our priorities. If we set our priorities right, like other things fall into place and they find the time in our day to get done, and other things that turn out to be not so important, like a lot of business stuff. We have good conversations, obviously, because my husband's a business owner as well. We were like, oh, I didn't get enough done today at work, and it's like we never get everything done. Like, why?
Exactly.
That's just not. But nobody died because I didn't send an email.
Yeah. Yeah.
The email that I wanted to get off, like, it's fine. But I think that's a great reminder of perspective and priorities. It's a powerful thing.
Totally. Oh,
Lastly,
go ahead.
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to ask because your PT project, your the PT project is different, and we didn't really get into that too much. One, your clinic is so cool. Talk about being a badass in general. Like it's a cool gym clinic. Like it's way cooler than you probably ever expect a PT clinic to be. But it's different. It's private pay. What else can you tell us about how the PT project is different compared to most PT clinics?
Yeah, so our business model being a cash pay clinic, which essentially just means that we don't do the billing for people. We give
Mhm.
them a receipt after their visit, and they can turn that into insurance to be reimbursed back based on their out of network benefits. But essentially, what that allows us to do is spend a full hour each and every visit just one on one with our client, just you and your physical therapist. No aides, no assistants. In Oregon, you only have to have a high school diploma to be an aide in a PT clinic. And so, a lot of places, you'll maybe see your physical therapist for 5 or 10 minutes, and then they pass you off to a care extender. We just don't believe that that's the best thing. And when you're paying for physical therapy, you should be receiving it from a physical therapist, somebody who has a master's or a doctorate degree in human movement. And so that allows us just to get way faster results, fewer visits, less time out of the people's day. So that's a big part of it. We are also kind of like, you know, we are, that's other than that, like that's the baseline of it. Yes, our clinic looks and feels much more like the gym, because my I didn't want a boring, sterile environment like standard medical facility, which is just like people who are sick go to the doctor, people who are taking care of themselves and getting better go to the gym. So I wanted my facility to look like the gym, because when people go to the gym, they have an instant like buy-in that like, oh, I'm
Mhm.
coming here to get better. And improve myself. And so that was the look and feel of it. So, we've got lots of weights and kettlebells, and we our clinic is set up like a CrossFit gym essentially. You're going to see the Echo bike, and the squat rack, and weights, and loud music and all of that stuff. So
Really cool. Absolutely. You've got all the toys, right? I mean, manual therapy is a part of your treatment as well. You've got a treadmill in there. You've got barbells, which was just the coolest thing. When I saw one of your other PTs, Sina,
yeah,
right, from a while
yep,
ago, a couple years ago, that was awesome. She was coaching me on how to deadlift, and I'd been doing CrossFit for 10 years at that point. No one had ever really corrected it, but it was just like the most subtle changes that made the world of difference. I thought that was the coolest thing as someone who always wants to kind of learn and get better. And I know you've helped out a client of mine with like getting her measured for the right bike
yep.
for doing like a half Ironman, and just so cool. So many other things that I never would have really thought that you guys could offer or would offer.
Yeah, we offer like running analysis stuff, bike fittings, movement coaching. I've done programming for people for specific strength stuff for the goals. Like,
Cool.
I have a client right now who's hiking Grand Canyon in 6 weeks, and we've designed a program for her, and what that looks like, and how to like structure those workouts and her weeks and mileage and all of those types of things. Marathoners, triathletes, all those folks. But like again, like you don't have to be those lofty goals to come in and see us.
Yeah. The whole spectrum.
Yeah.
The whole spectrum. If you have a body, you're an athlete. I love it.
Yep.
Absolutely. What's the best way for people to reach out to you? Is that giving your clinic a call, email, find your website? What's the best way to reach out?
Yeah, you can call or text the clinic. 971-239-3272 is the number there. You can go on our website, check us out. theptproject.net is our website. You can schedule and book consultation stuff through there. You can also find us, just Google Physical Therapy Project. That'll pull up great stuff. We're also on all the Instagram, Facebook, at the Physical Therapy Project is our handle. So lots of different ways to reach out, or you can always shoot me an email personally. Also, it's Jon at theptproject.net, and I'll reach out to you also.
Awesome. Okay, well, I'll get all that from you and put it in the show notes so people can reach out. But otherwise, thank you so much, John, for being on. This was a huge, huge wealth of knowledge that you shared with us. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Anytime. Thanks for having me on, and have a great rest of the day.
All right, that's what we got for today's episode of the Pre-Diet Podcast. Thank you so much for listening or watching on YouTube. Before you go, if you liked this episode, please consider sharing it with a friend, share it on your social media. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like this video. If you're listening on Spotify, please follow the show, consider leaving a comment or a 5-star review. This really helps us grow the show, get more guests on here, and reach a larger audience. So again, hopefully we can help people achieve their health goals in a positive way that doesn't make you crazy about life. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode.